Set in the hills of Happy Valley, Oregon, Pickathon is the crown jewel of the Northwest music festivals. A Disneyland of sort, including rising artists juxtaposed with big names, it sets itself apart with a different kind of ethic, a different kind of feel.
The happiest place on earth.
Right, without the lines.
Without the lines, without the corporate. I mean, yeah, Disneyland is a well-run operation, but this is like magic. Okay, that's fake magic. That's like materialized magic. This is actual magic.
Actual magic here at Pickathon.
That was 10-String Symphony. We'll be talking to them today in part 1 of a 3-episode special, taking us back to Pickathon Music Festival 2016. Later in the episode, we'll also be hanging out with rocker Ezra Furman, who answered a fan's burning question.
And I'm wondering what the disconnect of your interviews are.
I think I know what you mean.
That's on this week's episode of Gritty Birds. My name is Jenny Wren Stottrup. I'm an artist, producer, and podcaster based out of Portland, Oregon. Every week, I share a news story straight from the voice of a successful artist or industry professional. Want to know the secrets of the grittiest in music today? Stay tuned. This is Gritty Birds on KXRY, Portland X-Ray FM, 107.1 and 91.1. We'll meet up with Ezra Furman later in the episode. But first, let's go backstage with 10-String Symphony. Rachel and Christian are close. They think of themselves as siblings. She is an Illinois fiddle champ. He is a classically trained violinist with a rock background. Together, they found a balance between their backgrounds to create innovative folk with only 10 strings.
Hello, my name is Christian Settlemeyer. I am 1/2 and 5 strings of 10-String Symphony.
Hey, I'm Rachel Bayman. I'm the other 5 strings of the 12-string orchestral symphony. I'm just kidding. It's just 10.
We'll talk about that later.
Up or down?
Well, it's important that one of us is playing an up bow and the other one's playing a down bow. Otherwise, our hands run into each other when we're around the one mic setup.
Which actually is a really wonderful experience. Very connected. And we're using a mic handmade in Portland, Oregon by Philip of Ear Trumpet Labs.
Oh, you're with Ear Trumpet. How did you get hooked up with Ear Trumpet?
We went into the Ear Trumpet laboratories, the top secret hub of the Ear Trumpet microphones. And we recorded some videos using some of their mics, and we were very, very impressed with the sounds, and that's kind of what led us to start using one. And I think it's also what led us to be here at Pickathon, so we're really stoked.
Rachel and Christian were regular side players in the Nashville scene before meeting, both sharing a special connection to the 5-string violin, or is it a fiddle?
Well, yes, violin, fiddle. I guess 5-string violin is an interesting notion that is not really accepted much in the classical world, which might definitionally make it a fiddle because we're playing non-classical things on it. But we met in Nashville, where we live, at a jam at a bar in East Nashville that used to happen on every Wednesday night. And it was the one night of the week where you could go to this bar at the 5 spot, and you could bring your instrument and you could play it, and there was nobody playing officially on the stage, but people were starting their own jams throughout, the bar and in the back parking lot.
Yeah, we actually had recently both acquired 5-string fiddles. I think that was our band connection. And then now we're essentially siblings. I think it's maybe just the magnetic force of the 5-string fiddle.
I like how your wristbands are on the hands that, like, when you're sitting next to each other right now. Is this what your setup is like, where Rachel's on the right and Christian's on the left?
In fact, it is.
So that's why we have to watch out for our up bows and down bows.
I asked Rachel and Christian about the first records they ever bought.
I just bought my first records very, very recently because I had never lived in a place with a record player until like 4 months ago. And I bought Simon & Garfunkel, Tales from New York, and I love that. But my parents had records, so I did listen to records for that, but I just moved. I've been very hoboic. Like, I've had many, many homes. moved a lot. So I haven't been in the process of acquiring possessions. Christian often buys records when we're touring, and although I do love records, they're a very hard thing to have on a tour because you kind of have to babysit them. Don't leave your records in the sun. They'll warp, and they won't be good for anyone.
I think the first record that I bought was Loudon Wainwright III's Attempted Mustache.
That record has had a huge influence on us as a band, actually.
Can you imagine taking something very seriously, so much so that you take it seriously not at all? Because that's how I feel when I listen to that record. I feel like I'm very in touch with the universe and that there was no effort put into it, which, you know, may or may not be true, but it doesn't even really matter.
This was the first trip the 10-string Symphony took to Pickathon as a duo. But they had been here before with other projects.
When we formed our band, one of our band's goals was to play at Pickathon, and so now we kind of have to figure out where we go from here. But we've both been here before, but not as 10-string Symphony. I played 3 years ago with Bradford Lee Folk and the Bluegrass Playboys, and Rachel was here last year, and she played some songs with Langhorne Slim. So we both have experienced the amazingness that is Pickathon prior to now, but now we have to navigate these waters with our own project, which is like the most exciting and scary prospect that I think that maybe I've faced to date.
Yeah, I think what I'm excited about along those same lines is that I feel like sometimes with our band, it's hard to know exactly where it will find its audience. And I could imagine that Pickathon is the best audience, not only for our band, but just kind of in general. So I think that's what I'm the most excited about. But also, yeah, like we're here at Pickathon. That's awesome. So now we have to make new goals. What's our goal gonna be now? I don't even know. We might have to climb Mount Everest or something.
10-string Symphony continued to grow to a wider audience. They've been featured on All Things Considered, and recently were invited to play 2 nights at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville with Casey Musgraves.
We played Strings, which was sort of like liberated strings is how I would describe it, with Casey Musgraves for her 2 album release shows at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville. Liberated strings meaning that there were some parts for some songs, but they also hired us because of what we do, and wanted us to kind of like add our flavor to the equation, which was it was cool. It was a cool thing. Casey's cool.
Yeah, it was my first time at the Ryman, playing at the Ryman, and Casey's a pretty amazing visionary for her band. It's all very detailed, and the vibe is so great. It's kind of like Pickathon, where around every corner you find something else awesome that isn't necessary but just makes everything great. It's kind of like Casey's band, like you get your backstage pass and it's like sparkling pink, and there's like cactus shot glasses full of tequila and like light up arrows everywhere backstage, and you're kind of like, this isn't necessary, but it's like the best ever. Like, why shouldn't life be this way? That's how I feel about Pickathon too, you know? Like, why isn't every day this way? What are we all doing? Why isn't there free Ben and Jerry's in my backyard at all times?
Playing in the background is Joseph. They are from Portland and were on the main stage during our conversation.
I heard them last year on the Treeline stage, and they were great then. They sound even better this year. It sounds like they've been growing their sound. It's nice.
It's very nice.
It's easy to get caught up in the beauty of Pickathon.
The happiest place on earth.
Right, without the lines.
Without the lines, without the corporate. I mean, yeah, Disneyland is a well-run operation, but this is like magic. Okay, that's fake magic. That's like materialized magic. This is actual magic.
Actual magic here at Pickathon.
When I was younger, couldn't see no other, couldn't see nobody's trouble but my own. tried to cover, he tried to cover my eyes with his own. I had a lover, he made me tougher, tougher than the last fall leaves, hanging all alone. If I give myself to you, don't mend a heart that's torn. I don't need to be good, I just need someone. If I give myself to you, don't mend a heart that's torn. I don't need to be good, I just need someone to be good for.
That was Someone to Be Good For from 10 String Symphony's 2015 release, Weight of the World. Go to Gritty Bird's Instagram page for their video portrait and more from this year's festival.
We are 10 String Symphony.
And you are listening to Gritty Birds.
Thank you so much.
If you're just joining us, I'm Jenny Wren Stotrup, and you're listening to Gritty Birds on KXRY, Portland X-Ray FM, 107.1 and 91.1. If you haven't left an iTunes review yet, do it! I promise you, it really, really helps. This is week 1 of a special 3-week series taking us back to Pickathon Music Festival 2016.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Ezra. Nice to meet you. Should we sit on those hay bales?
Rocker Ezra Furman is shy and polite in person, with an adventurous spirit and creative drive that comes out when he's on stage. He's always looking for a new way of pushing himself. Ezra had several interviews scheduled while I was with him. We had a fast 10 minutes that ended with an interesting experience with a fan. We started out talking language, as he just finished an interview with Bitch Magazine.
It's funny to say that because it's been like a word that I refuse to say, for years now. But I respect the claiming of it by the magazine. I really do. Maybe I'll start saying it, but only in the right context. It's just loaded for me. It's a loaded word.
Like, how do you? I mean, so language is something your songwriting is really beautiful and poignant. When you step into your writing, how do you kind of explore language?
There's a few different ways that writing lyrics starts. A lot of times, it's just musical, wanting the sound of certain words. Just the sound of it. There's something emotionally satisfying about the sound of certain words. If you want to be someone who writes, you gotta be into the sound of words, because that's all words really are, is sounds. Then the other way is, I just collect phrases. I have little books or little documents full of phrases that I think of. A lot of them are misheard song lyrics. I think I hear something in a song, I'm like, that's a great lyric, but then it turns out I heard it wrong. I notice a lot of things start with the kernel like that. And then sometimes I think I misheard it and I try to use it, but then I actually heard it correctly. I thought I misheard the lyric. It used to be that my head was haunted from a Pixies song. I think it's called, it's Letter to Memphis. And then I was like, a head being haunted, I'm really into that idea, and that's not what he really said. But then it was what he really said. I started to rely too much on mishearing words. Heard it right.
Ezra is from Chicago, where he was raised with his brother, fellow musician Jonah of the Krill. He moved out to Oakland a few years ago for a relationship, but his journey is starting to shift.
I'm from Chicago, Illinois.
Do you still live there now?
I'm actually moving back there very soon. It's been a while. It's been 5 years. I currently live in Oakland, California.
Being on the road a lot means that when you're home, there are certain traditions that help bring a sense of normalcy, or touchstones.
Where do you like to go in Chicago?
There's a place called Jerry's Grill. It's a 24-hour diner in Lincoln Square. That's a touchstone for me. I like an all-night diner. I like that you can just go there at any time and get a omelet and stay up all night talking to the waitresses or whatever. So there's tons of places, though.
Do you have a touchstone in Oakland?
I don't know. My house. What comes to mind? I don't know. There's a few bars I really enjoy. I mean, I've been living right down the street from like a great, almost archetypal.
Archetypical? I don't know.
An archetypical dive bar called The Graduate, which is just a block from my house. And that's a lovely place. There's kinds of communities, even if they're sort of messed up communities, form in the right kind of dive bar, you know? And I like just like cheap rundown places. It's just, I've always been attracted to that kind of place. And then there's just like places I love, like a couple of synagogues that I attend and feel kind of a part of. It's sad to leave. It's sad to leave the Bay Area. It's become my home, you know? And now I'm going back to my other home, which doesn't feel like so much my home anymore. But it will again, I guess.
What is leading to your transition to go back to your old space?
Well, maybe for this podcast, the most relevant motivator is that my band pretty much lives in Chicago. And we've recorded all our albums in Chicago at my bandmate and saxophone player's studio that he built. And actually most of the time I've been recording there, I've just been not living there. And it's sort of harder to... I'm always on a trip when I'm recording or rehearsing, preparing for tour, visiting Chicago. I'd like to live there. There's other things too. There's a lot of things pulling me to Chicago, but that's the big musical one.
Growing up, guitar came naturally, and his writing soon followed.
The guitar became a sort of object that I lusted after when I was 12, I think. I was getting into punk rock, and I was like, I need to do this. And I knew a kid with a guitar, and he was like, if you want to play punk songs, you only need to play one chord, and you just move it around, and you've got it. It's really easy. So I was like, I need that. So I got my, I turned 13, and I had a bar mitzvah. And, you know, it was like a good time to get me like a sort of a larger birthday present. So I got a guitar. And then I started. I started writing songs really quickly. Within a year of getting the guitar, I was writing my own songs. I was really bad at playing guitar and singing for a very long time. I'm still like no virtuoso.
This summer, Ezra released a new album with his band, Ezra Furman and the Boyfriends. Ezra has gone back and forth over the years between performing solo and with his bands. His first band was the Harpoons. These shifts have been steadily driven by the urge he feels to continuously create something better.
You've been developing as an artist for some time and had, you know, a lovely amount of success and continue to produce really great records. And what is something that has become like really grounding for you as an artist to be able to continue doing that?
So what comes to mind is some kind of dissatisfaction. Like, what's been really important to me is like that last thing that you did that was like you were satisfied with. You need to never do anything that's less good than that ever again. Like, you have to get much, much better every time you come to the table. You know, I guess that's a sort of like looking at the last thing you did is like, yeah, that was pretty good. It was nowhere near good enough, nowhere near as good as the next thing needs to be. You know, I like putting a lot of pressure on myself like that. I like to feel sort of like in my head at least, very competitive. Like, I'm trying to be really great at this. I don't want to do something that's good enough. Because even it turns out, like, the things that I think are good, I don't know, they're just not good enough. You know, like, I know that sounds like sort of self-punishing, but I don't know, that's been really helpful to me. And it's also kept me, like, making lots of things. Like, an obsession with producing something new. I mean, I know people who wait, like, 3-4 years between making their records. And that seems really... I don't doubt that they're going deeper than I am, you know, which I respect. But I just feel like I need to keep up the pace and keep, like, being prolific. This is my job. This is my only job, and who knows how long I'm even going to want to keep doing this. So I, like, treat everything I make as, like, this could be the last thing, and it's got to be the best quality it can possibly be. And I'm usually thinking of that as a writer. Maybe I should think of, yeah. I've always seen my job as being a songwriter first. That's what I care the most about. That's what the craft I have the most interest in. Although I've become very interested in the craft of making records and stuff, and playing guitar and stuff like that. But they're all secondary to, like, just being able to write a great song.
Just as we were closing our interview, a woman came up to us.
I'm Zoe Kelleher. I'm a federal investigator, and I am involved in interviewing techniques all the time. And I am a huge fan of Ezra Furman, and have been since I heard Take Off Sunglasses, say at least 6 years ago? I think I've seen 8 of his shows. Unreal every time.
She had a burning question. A woman who professionally interviews people had one thing she needed to find out from her favorite artist.
And I'm wondering what the disconnect of your interviews are. It sounds boilerplate, or there's just a disconnect between your music and the voice that I see you represent yourself versus how you appear.
Before we get to Ezra's answer, let's listen to one of his songs to give you an idea of the voice of the man you just heard versus the artist's onstage persona. This is Teddy, I'm Ready.
Everybody took sarcastic. Everybody's in the know. I think I might do something drastic if they don't let me go away from it all. But I can't afford a jet plane, and the price of gas is high. There's nowhere that I can run to, and I feel so sick and shy. Gonna make a big noise to the sky. Teddy, I'm ready to rock and roll. Teddy, I'm ready to rock and roll. And if she smiles at me in the snow, baby, I'm ready to rock and roll.
That was Teddy, I'm Ready from Ezra Furman's summer release, Big Fugitive Life. You're listening to Gritty Birds on 107.1 and 91.1 X-Ray FM. Right before we broke off for the song, we met federal investigator and huge Ezra Furman fan, Zoe Callagher, who had a burning question. I'll replay a bit.
And I'm wondering what the disconnect of your interviews are. It sounds boilerplate, or there's just a disconnect between your music and the voice that I see you represent yourself versus how you appear.
I think I know what you mean. I've always found it really hard to speak. It's like something I've learned really slowly, to speak improvisationally. If I have a chance to write something, I can write well, and I feel like I can say what I mean and sound like myself. If I'm on the spot answering a question, even a question I've been asked before, I just find it so hard to inhabit the moment, especially on live radio, when the pressure's on to just speak continuously. I don't know, maybe there's not that much pressure. I think part of the reason I write is because I cannot speak, and part of the reason I make music is because speaking never seems adequate. And without the rhythm and melody, the things that music does to take you beyond words, words often don't seem good enough. Or at least conversationally and socially, I've got social anxiety and not so good at improvising. I'm never much of an improviser. I'm more of a writer, so that comes out in these interviews, I think. I feel like I just said that really well, though, so I've learned a little bit.
And that's this week's peek into Pickathon Music Festival 2016. We'll be back the next 2 weeks on other adventures, with Proto-Martyr, Boulevards, Palehound, Tao and the Get Down, plus a trip into the sky at the start of Jeff Tweedy's Mountain Stage Twilight solo set with the Sky Crew. Don't forget to check out video portraits of both Ezra and 10-String Symphony up at our Instagram page. Special thanks today to Christian and Rachel of 10-String Symphony, and to Ezra Furman for coming onto the show and letting me use tracks from their recent albums. You've been listening to Gritty Birds on KXRY 97.1, 107.1 X-Ray FM out of Portland, Oregon. You can follow Gritty Birds at GRITTYBIRDS on all social media networks. You heard Someone to Be Good For from 10-String Symphony's 2015 release, Weight of the World, on Tasty Creek Records, and to Teddy I'm Ready by Ezra Furman from Bar None Records. Today's outro is Deacon's Waltz from 10-String Symphony's self-titled release. See you next week.